Hello everybody and welcome back to the free online woodworking school where we aim to take your woodworking skills to the next level. In today's video, we're going to get the drawer and the door stops fitted. Let's get going. Right, door stops and drawer stops. Nice simple video this. Essentially all we're going to be doing is putting a little stop for the drawer on this bottom section here and then a stop for the door in the top corner. Nice and simple. Now you'll see that I've removed the door for this. This is just purely because I might be flipping this cabinet upside down and on its side and stuff, and having that door swinging around might be a bit annoying. So I've taken it off and I probably won't attach it again until we finish sanding and finishing the rails and stiles. So starting with the drawer stop, this is going to be a nice thin piece of material, much shorter than this, underneath the drawer. We're not doing it on top because it might get in the way potentially, and it just makes sense to put it down here. And this drawer stop can be made of any material, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. The only thing you need to ensure is that it is thinner than this step on the bottom of the drawer. You don't want it poking above like it is doing in this case. So I need to plane this down. And obviously thin components like this can be troublesome to try and clamp on a bench and get full access to the top. And so I would suggest double-sided tape, carpet tape, whatever, stick that to your bench and then pop that on top of it. And so now we'll just get that planed down to thickness so that it is able to fit under that drawer base. So next I want to work out how far back this drawer stop needs to be so that the front of the drawer stops in the correct location. And for this, we're going to use a marking gauge. So the marking gauge needs to be set very precisely to the thickness of the front of the drawer. No overhang, no underhang. I'm going to use a ruler to butt it against just to make sure I get it absolutely bang on. And instead of scribing that mark across the entire thing, I'm probably going to end up cutting this block to about 50 millimeters wide. And so we'll get the center mark of it and then mark 25 mil either side of that. And we've got a nice boundary to mark this line between. And now when this drawer stop goes in, I don't really want any of it overhanging the back of this rail here. And so I'm going to cut it down to be a little bit thinner. And so the width of this component is 30, drawer front's 15. We've got 15 mil either side, but I'm going to cut this to 10 millimeters wide because I've got quite a heavy round over on the back of this component to prevent the drawer catching on it. And so let's take this down to 10 mil wide. Right, then let's put a tiny bit of glue on the bottom of this drawer stop. We don't want too much because any squeeze out may shroud that line that I've scratched in there. So I want to make sure it's nice and clean. Now, personally, I'm using Type Bond 2 for this because it's got quite a strong tack and it should prevent this from slipping while I put the clamps on. So for that drawer stop, I would advise leaving it in there for about half an hour or so. Take the clamps off and test the fit of the drawer and see if you've got that in the correct position. Leave it any longer than that and you're going to struggle to remove it if the drawer isn't stopping in the correct position. Likewise, if you don't leave it long enough, then you might accidentally push that drawer stop back when you go and fit the drawer in. So half an hour would be a good sweet spot. Check it fits. If not, pop it off. If it does, happy days, leave it there. So in the meantime, we're going to begin working on the door stop. And I've got a similar piece of material here. I'm going to plane this down to about 12 millimeters thick. Again, the thickness of this isn't too crucial, but you've got a 15 millimeter door and it's going onto a 30 millimeter component. So as long as it's less than 15, you'll be absolutely fine. 12 is a nice round number for me, so we'll go for that. Wait, why am I not using the vise for this? So I want this piece to go up at 45 degrees like this, which means cutting off a corner here and cutting off this excess material. It does mean that due to the fact this is only going to be glued on here, it might be a little bit of an end-grainy joint, but there's not going to be a lot of pressure on it whatsoever, and at least we have got some sort of long grain given to us by that 45-degree angle that we'll be cutting on them. It's up to you though, as long as the door stop's in the correct position, I guess. That might end up covering that screw. Might need to make this a little bit smaller, I think. By the way, if you're sanding small components like this, make sure that the gap between the sandpaper and the bed is very, very small, i.e. not small enough to suck this piece down there. This is the reason why I love this sander, because it gets proper close, but on some models, especially if you tilt the bed, there becomes a big old gaping gap there. In those cases, get a piece of material that you can clamp to the bed that takes the table right up to the sandpaper. You're much less likely to get the components sucked down it that way, as well as your fingers. Right, so I've scuffed up the glue faces of the doorstop to give it a better bond. And I've also created this hook that will basically go on the top like that and gives me something to clamp at 45 degrees to get this block stuck in place. So same principle as before, get the thickness of the door scribed on first, a little bit of glue. Right, and while the doorstop's drying, let's have a look and see how this is getting on. Hey, nice. Right, so I've let these stops dry for about 4 or 5 hours. Obviously the drawer, we've already tested it. That is fitting in there lovely. Tiny little step here, which I'm going to flush off now. And the same for the door. Once I get that into position, there is a very small step up here, but I'm not really going to address that now, because by the time I sand both the front and the back of the door, that will help drop it back to be flush with the rest of the carcass. So for now, we're just going to sort out the drawer, and then we'll address this when it comes to the sanding stages later in the series. So I've taken off the bottom just to allow better access to this bottom edge, and yeah, plane it flush. Right, we're pretty much there, but I was struggling to hit this area of the drawer front when it was in the carcass, so I'm just going to do it on its own in the vise. And there you go, that is how you attach the door, the drawer stops, and also flush off the front of the drawer with the cabinet. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do not forget to press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video where we begin making some handles.